In downtown Vicksburg, the boys begin their next investigation, a hair salon and art gallery where a man said he had a deadly encounter with a ghost brushing him, and the visions he saw because of it. His wife thinks it's a demonic presence, and her son seems affected. Or is he? There can be no other answer that it's a nothing. So that does beg the question, what in the world is it that we're dealing with? So, let's see. Meanwhile, next door, there's a doll museum that is watched by something that is attached to the dolls, something that loves them very much. So, okay, everybody, let's get talking about this. Joel, Sonia, thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we're going to have some fun with this episode, although there wasn't very much to it that was really stood out too much. So you guys can unmute yourselves. So, Sonia, what was it you were noticed about? We'll start with the hair salon / art gallery. What was it that you noticed about that, if anything?
I didn't really feel much. Like I say, I felt more with the doll hat, with the museum of dolls.
The only thing that I noticed in the museum was that in the back area that there was apparently they'd kept slaves there, which was no joke. And Zach even saw an arm come out like somebody was waving, which is weird because normally I wouldn't imagine anybody doing that, but in order to draw attention to themselves. And the thing itself was doing its best to try and drive them off or keep them scared. And I think Joel noticed that as well. Joel?
Yeah, I think it was just didn't want to call attention to itself. I mean, if you're hiding, that's your main goal. So not, call attention to yourself. And I think that's what it was, more or less. Except for the one. The one seemed to want to talk, which was a little bit strange, but it was cool. Yeah, as far as the kid goes, I don't know. He seemed like a normal teenager to me.
Well, when I rewatched the entire thing, I noticed that the father and the son they had gifts. I was noticing this because the boy was doing his best not to shine, and he feels that he is followed and watched. The father is definitely gifted, as I said, and that was the reason why he could sense the ghosts from the area below. And he got, when the thing went past him while he was asleep, because he was in an automatically receptive state, best I could come up with, is that he saw something. And it freaked him out, of course. You can't always snap immediately to wakefulness. And a lot of that information, when it comes in, tends to be like, well, you're going to have to watch this before you can come awake, because here's all the data and your brain wants to make sure you get hit with it. Having had lots of strange sleep issues where something would send me a message in my sleep, I do sympathize. But he was worried, and he even had his wife pray with him. It's like, yeah, come and pray with me. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And that's unfortunately the ignorant stance a lot of people have with things like this these days, where everything's evil, everything's demonic. And he's saying, it must be demonic because when I woke up, I saw red. The entire room was a red exposure. And he felt his body was frozen, which is basically you're sluggishly waking up. Now, I was meant to ask, what would cause you to see the room as red medically, Joel? What would an increase in blood pressure do that? A sudden spike? Because I know that when pilots fly, they have to worry about two different kinds of passing out. One is blacking out, which is blood not going to the brain. And the other one is browning out, and you actually see red, where blood pressure is going like friggin' crazy to the brain because you're doing an outside loop, right?
Yeah. I've never experienced the redding out. I'm not sure, but I have heard about the browning out, where if a pilot pulls too much G's, too much blood is rush to the head, and then of course they night. That's it.
And they see red because of it. That's what they call it, a brownout, but it's you're seeing red. And I
Yeah,
remember this being put into a video game where, and this was years ago, where if you did an outside loop and you did it too hard, the entire screen would turn red, and if you kept it up, your guy would go out, and you couldn't control the plane. So is that
yeah.
valid? Could you do that
That
if your blood pressure spiked high enough?
if your blood pressure spikes high enough, I guess you can black out.
Well, red out, brown out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've normally the patients that I've talked to when they have like a severely high blood pressure, they sometimes get a little bit dizzy, but most of the times they get like a real bad headache. None of them reported just like browning out from it. So as far as my experience, I haven't heard of it. I haven't dealt with that. The pilots I used to work with when I was in the Air Force, they never mentioned it, probably because the suits were so well developed and they were trained enough where they would know how much G's they can withstand.
Now,
So
this is probably for
I
a
couldn't
forensic.
answer to that, but
This is
that
probably
might be
something
it.
for a forensic doctor to ask. Would be if you were being choked or wasn't able to breathe, would you see red? And if I remember correctly, if you're being choked, where you're actually getting your entire neck is cordoned off, breathing as well as blood flow, you start to see red, and that's another thing. But the guy was not being choked, so it begs the question: why would he see a red exposure for something that wasn't sitting there choking him?
Yeah. The other thing is it could be just like a psychic impression, a mental impression of what was going on with the entity or the memory of or whatever was happening at that time. I think we decided that something did walk past and left that
Yeah.
impression. So that
Well,
could have been it too.
I'm just trying to debunk it first. I'm just trying to go, is there a medical reason? Would medical reasons be? Are there any, we don't just go, it's got to be the devil, mama. We don't run to that one first. That's because
No,
if
I don't think it was.
Our credibility will go right out the freaking shitter. So
yeah, I definitely don't know about that, on a nurse's standpoint.
It's just one of those things that I realized is a minor possibility, but number one, they didn't mention the guy had a high blood pressure, so it's a question I would definitely have asked. If the guy did have high blood pressure, if he has sleep apnea, or if he wasn't able to breathe, or if there was something that might have been putting pressure on his throat. These are questions I would have asked immediately. I don't know if they did ask it and it was off camera, but it's one of those things that you really do want to eliminate first. Now, that it's a psychic impression is entirely possible. In fact, she said she saw the door open, right? Just a few seconds, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm incorrect on this. And then she saw the door open itself, and then he's all of a sudden freaking out. But the thing had already passed.
Yeah.
Right? So what was causing this? What was he seeing? And he doesn't mention a whole lot. He doesn't say a whole lot about it, and it's all in the video. Nothing that would say, well, I had a dream about blah, 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 and this is what I saw, and this was in the dream, and or that I was seeing a slave do this or dying or whatnot. None of that. They also, I think they said that they heard voices of a girl in the house, in actually that upper area, the back area where they live. And we come back to how is a girl going to be a dangerous thing? A little girl. And I'm not one of those ones still that's going to jump to it's got to be the devil because they mimic children and scratches mock the Trinity garbage. Okay. This is going to be sort of a side tangent, just quick insert. I want everybody, whoever listens to these things, to look at your hands and notice that your pinky is actually a very small digit. Okay. Now, in martial arts, nobody ever uses the pinky for combat. You do your best to get that bad boy out of the way, even when you're fighting in certain martial arts styles that require you to actually attack using a claw shape. Now, if you put your hands into the shape of a claw, you'll notice your pinky tucks away pretty neatly to try and get out of there. It actually tucks up pretty good. And your thumb and your first 3 fingers, your index finger, middle finger, ring finger, are the ones that are actually going to stand out as something you can apply a set of nails from. This holds true for ghosts because when they've been alive, what is it they're going to do? They're going to fall back on basically their body shape when they were human or semi-human, or even if there's something that is copying a human shape. So what are you going to do? You're only going to get those 3 freaking fingers able to assault a person, or you're going to be able to scratch them. You think about the last time you scratched an itch on yourself, or you said, hey, boyfriend, girlfriend, hubby, wife, please scratch this itch on my back. Did you feel all 4 of their fingers? Usually not. It's usually those first 3. And those are the ones that are going to be scratching you. So this is, I want to put this to bed. This whole, pardon me, this whole mocking the Trinity crap. It's just, that's the fingers that are going to be able to apply damage. Take this from a guy who actually did 2 martial arts and became a 2nd-degree black belt in one of them. Okay, there's really no other way to apply, if you're going to scratch somebody, a serious gouge with a pinky. It just isn't going to happen. If you do try really hard to do it and you have a long enough nail, there's a really good chance you're going to break off the first digit, break that finger, or bend it so far back that you're not going to be able to apply the other 3 fingers. Even if you let your nail grow as long as Carrie Fisher did, so she could, snort her toot when she was doing Return of the Jedi. But I just wanted to get that one out of the way because that's just a prime piss off for me, because I hear the mocking the Trinity garbage a lot.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just from a martial arts standpoint, you're not really going to get that pinky involved in anything.
So before we move on to the dollhouse, anything else you guys noticed about the main part of the building?
Nope.
Nope.
Just seemed to be devoid of most things. It didn't feel like it was active, but.
Well, the downstairs for me, when they went down there, they kept on getting lots of evidence, including the one ghost that was trying to either get noticed or run off Billy Tolly and Aaron. And I'd seen when they finally were showing it, when they hopped up there and were actually taking videos of that room, that there was a slave ghost dressed in a vest and pants, and a room full of other slaves that were cowering against the back, and he was standing towards the front like he was defending them. That was why I think they got the feeling that they needed to tell them, you guys can leave, and it even asked for water, I believe. I think there was an EVP asking for water.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a drink. I think it said drink.
Yeah.
Which was heartbreaking, because they really should know to move on. And the son said, I feel things are following me around. Well, more than likely for 2 reasons. One, he's gifted, so he's going to shine, right? And they're going to be attracted to that. But number 2 is like, look, there's a black guy, and he's walking around, and he's a kid, and they're not doing stuff like they're slaves, etc. And they actually have lives, and they go places, and the kid, of course, is going to feel like he's being stalked, right? He can't see them.
Yeah.
He can feel them. A great many of the basically gifted can feel like crazy. And he's like, yeah, I feel it behind me, and it moves when I move, and it stops when I stop. And it's like, yeah, that's curiosity. That's not something breathing down your neck. That's like vicarious living. They're, of course, going to follow the kid who's got the life that they always wanted. Do I feel it's a danger? Nah. Even Zach, the holy grail of all holy grails, Zach even said to the wife, I've forgotten her name, I'm sorry. It's like, I don't feel it's demonic. Oh my God. That admission alone was worth watching the whole episode.
I was surprised he actually, because usually he goes, Mama, look, demon.
Yeah.
And he pushes it real hard. It's like, it's got to be demonic. Yeah. That he actually let it go blew my mind.
Yeah, it's because he also pushes like, oh, if it's a child, it has to be a demon because demons always act like children.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Have struggle passing on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's see. Now the next part was the dollhouse. The doll museum. Now I love this doll museum because there was feels coming off of so many of these dolls. So many of these dolls actually had feelings and things attached to them from the previous owners, and quite a few of them had life within them that was imparted by the love of the child.
Yeah.
But the most important thing about this entire museum was not the doll that was sent there by the Jewish girl who would eventually die in the concentration camp. Not to make light of that situation, that doll was loved. There's no evil attached to it because when the girl died, it was on a completely different continent.
Yeah.
Sorry, trying not to laugh at this. Okay, but this is what it seemed like. Now that we know that Zach went and did that episode with Annabelle, that he was basically working his courage up so that he could handle Annabelle. We'll talk about that one on another video because I don't want to say I told you so until we get to that one. But so Zach, whose primary 3 fears are snakes, dolls, and clowns, goes and says, instead of sending Aaron, he goes to the dollhouse and has Billy watching over him. Now, this dollhouse, I should say, I'm sorry, is watched by a former brigadier general, and his wife owned the museum. And he feels that she's there and that she moves things at times, which to me sounds like she's either fixing things or whatever. He's trying to move stuff around. And he said that they heard a hiss, and I listened to it like 10 times, this hiss, and it sounded like a sigh, like the person couldn't communicate, so they went like that, which is how a kid would sigh. And he's freaking out. It's a hiss. It's a hiss. A hiss? So,
even running down the corridor and falling on his backside, I nearly wet myself. It's like that was not a hiss. That was it was a hell of a size. Somebody definitely sounded fed up. But,
yeah.
We need to get James Hong, the guy who does the father of Po in Kung Fu Panda. He was the counselor for the emperor in Mulan, to say this line, because remember he says, "I do not scream like a girl," right? To say, "I do not run like a girl," because that's what he was doing. He was running like a girl in a horror film.
He fell as well.
He didn't fall though, so I got to give it up for that.
He didn't fall. He threw himself on his ass repeatedly at the corners to then push himself back to his feet and then run again. He didn't fall. Yeah. He would throw himself on his ass. I'm thinking to myself, that's about as effective as walking on your buttocks at the dentist's office to get away from where the dentist is picking.
Yeah, that was pretty freaking humorous, though. Because he did go down real. Oh my gosh!
And one of the times he hit that rope, and it caused the Santa Claus hand to jump into the air, and it freaked him out even worse.
Yes, yeah.
When he was stood next to the Santa Claus.
Yeah, that was,
yeah.
And he's next to the Santa Claus, and he freaks out because it's a full-size figure. Oh my god!
You know what I mean? He was like, "I was not expecting that." I was like, "Yes."
What? Did you not see the Santa Claus when you went to have a look last time?
Whatever. Oh, that was.
See, I could understand if it was a full figure in the dark and he hadn't actually walked through there and looked around at what was there. And if you're going to do that, you're not taking note of the different dolls, whether they're full-sized or not. What are you really doing?
Not doing his job.
So because of all these distractions and him trying to butt walk around the room while he's freaked out, he actually missed a piece of evidence that they later put into the commercial after they had shot and canned everything. Believe it or not, everything was shot, was in the can, was done, and Billy Tolley noticed something and then worked it into the commercial. Missed evidence, they listed it. So can't wait to see the aftershocks on this. Now, got to go into this one in depth. English dolls that are designed to look like babies have a thumb up so that they can be stuck in their mouth or near their mouth, pretend like they're sucking on their finger. But at the same time, the pinky is out, because babies usually, when they can make a fist at first, they aren't able to curl the pinky in completely if they're newborn. This happens with some of them. So the stylized look on the dolls is thumb up, pinky out, first three fingers curled. I know this because my father used to work for Mattel Toys. I was a test toy kid. Take from that what you will. And we also used to get toys from England that were given to my sister, and we also got ones from the U.S. This style in the hand is uncommon in the U.S. after the 1930s. Don't believe me? Look it up. So this hand type comes into frame from behind a piece of wood and there's a separator. You can't see what doll it is. Yeah. The pinky is pointing when it comes down. Then this unarticulable hand articulates like Chucky the doll, and the pinky comes in and the finger goes out. The thumb goes down to point like they're pointing across the room, pointing at Zach, then goes back to the previous pinky articulation and rotates up out of the camera side, out of the camera's view. I am not even certain how you do that.
Yeah, and a lot of them did look like they were made out of plastic, though, with the shine.
Yeah, solid plastic that cannot articulate, right? So
no, yeah, and some of them were actually made out of pot as well, like Victorian style. I noticed that, and their hand is solid in the same article, so there's no way any of them could have moved.
And I really would like to be able to find this clip and put this into the video so that I can show everybody and have it repeatedly play while we're talking about this. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. I will do my best to put it into the video so that when this goes on, when I've edited it into YouTube and for VidMe, you'll be able to see it. Because quite literally, it is one of the most fascinating pieces of evidence I have ever seen of the paranormal. And it also indicates an extreme level of energy within one of those dolls, which they never identify for us. And I'm very curious what the history of that doll is and why it would point at Zach outside of going, look at that idiot. Because it's right after he plants himself on his ass.
Yeah. I wonder if it is just a laugh and point at him like a child would do.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's what I got the feeling of when it happened. It's like a child laughing and pointing, because obviously kids don't know not to laugh at certain things, do they? Like, but that even I laughed at.
Yeah.
You know, I got that feeling, even though certain dolls freak me out.
Now,
thank you.
Now, when they're asking for evidence, they're asking for he's saying, you know, which one is your favorite doll? And I wanted to point this out because I'm watching this, and I don't know if anybody else got this, but the doll that was chosen, I didn't even get to see it, was on a metal stand. And it looked to me like I saw a little girl's torso, like she was trying to hug it off of the surface, and it fell. And I saw her run. And that freaked Zach out worse. That's why he ran and then planted himself on his ass in the other corner away from it. And but that's all I got to see. It was very vague also, because most of what this place was really dark, as well as everything's in infrared without a lick of light, not even a lick of light. So there's nothing really for us to focus on. But this is one of the few times that something seemed to come in the IR for just a heartbeat. And of course, without Aaron present, there's nobody there really gifted to take the video, especially since all the cameras were static. Billy was at the helm. So whatever this was actually had enough energy to be able to manifest itself without anybody gifted enhancing the video. Sorry, Sonny, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I saw a glimpse of something, but I wasn't quite sure what it was when it grabbed.
So
But
I just
they
sorry. Go ahead.
still happen late because when stuff happens, they pull the camera away, so you don't really get a proper read. Still.
Well, in
Yeah.
this case, that was because those cameras were static. We got to see everything. The problem was that Zach stood up and ran at the cameras because they were in the corners pointing to the left, so that they would get a full view around the walk around. And unfortunately, what he did was block us from seeing anything. And when he started to run, the girl ran. Yeah, she ran off because he scared the ever living crap out of her. Why? I have to give it to the British paranormal collectors. I follow a lot of these on VidMe. I actually watched several, including the ones that went to Athelhampton Manor. These paranormal investigators have ice water in their veins. They must watch Ghost Adventures for what not to do tips, because when something happens, they don't move, they shut up, they don't speak, they just continue to listen. They focus the camera and they don't suddenly jerk it around. They all hush up and listen. I don't know if it's a change in it's a completely different way, a demeanor or a different level of education, because in England, when they want you to when they expect you to listen, you listen. In the United States, listen up means maybe I'll pay attention.
I think a lot of it is, I would imagine there was like a lot more training. I remember when I was thinking about going to paranormal research back when I was in the Air Force. There was no real schools that had it, and from what I had learned, like I would have to go abroad if I want to do any kind of form of education in it. So I'm thinking it might be that might have something to do with it. It's just the mindset.
Have you noticed
If
that,
that makes
Sonia?
sense.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just like I say, I've been on a few ghost hunts myself before, but it's just a thing we just naturally do. We just go silent, and then it's like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, get a little closer to the mic. Also, get harder to hear you.
Sorry. It's just a thing we just seem to naturally do. I don't know if it's like because it's ingrained we have to listen when we need to listen. I don't know. Being British myself, I have no idea.
Now, not to toot our own horn, when Joel and I would hear stuff, usually Joel and I went like dead quiet. In fact, there was more than a few times where we just go and stop breathing because we're trying to hear. And I don't know if that was a preservation technique or from experience. When we wanted to stay hidden, we knew you went dead quiet, you didn't make a noise, you didn't move, and we just listened for it to repeat. And I don't know if those instincts stand us in good stead, but it's something that we naturally did. I don't know if we always employed it, but it was something that was always good for making sure we weren't crazy, because if it repeated itself, it's like, yep, we just heard that again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We want to. Yeah, we want to pinpoint it.
Sorry, go ahead, Sonia.
It's a good way of pinpointing the noise, because if like you're down a corridor and there's like it's like one goes to the left, one goes to the right, and one's in front of you, you're gonna need to be quiet to go, where the fuck did that come from? And then you're able to work out where it's come from.
Go ahead, Joel.
No, I was just gonna say that's definitely one of the things we were trying to pinpoint where the sound came from, if it was going to repeat, if it was just something that was just off, And I just thought that was like the natural thing to do.
Yeah, it's because I guess we're the youngest in our family, so we learned that if we wanted to avoid stuff, you went, still as a deer and quiet. And you start letting your ears, and then you start letting your ears do the roving. So I think that's pretty funny, but that they just don't, that they can't be quiet.
Excuse me, I'm trying to conduct a wedding here, which has nothing to do with love. Please be quiet.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry, be quiet.
I'm sorry.